Hello, hello, good evening. Hope you can hear me. Welcome all, one and all, to It Takes a Village with Kirsty Gillmore! Yay! Hey, hope you're all well. The music was supposed to continue. Come on, music, yes! There we go. First glitch of the night. Cool, cool. Sounds like you can all hear me. Hope you're all doing well tonight. Big shout out to the mods, as ever. Now, where was I, dear? Okay. A few parish notices and then we'll get stuck in, eh? Alright. So, yeah. Hope you're doing well. Huge thanks to the glorious mods. If it is your first time here, just a few notes before we get started and stuck into this interview. On becoming a Twitch affiliate, I demonetised as much as Jeff would let me. Subs are of course gratefully received and go straight back into maintaining and improving the channel, but as an actor I already feel like enough of a commodity already. I don't want to make myself even more of one. Subs get some extra emotes, but everyone gets a break when we roll ads! And I'm only streaming once a week. Just think about that before you start signing up. I'm in a privileged position to sell autographs via Streamily and also do video requests on Cameo. I'm even having to limit requests for time. You can sign up on both platforms for notifications when the shops are reopened. If you feel compelled to throw money at me while streaming, please give it to a charity instead. We continue with Mind for the rest of the month. Your extremely generous donations are bringing us up to the £3,000 mark. Commands our charity if you want to know more about what this is, and donate if you already know who you're giving to. There's a QR code in the corner, and if you're on desktop, a Tiltify pop-up in the About section, so you don't even need to navigate away from the stream. Mind are the primary charity for mental health in England and Wales. Most of you watching tonight are based internationally, so if you'd rather give to a local mental health cause, please do. I originally wanted to give 50% of my Twitch income away, but what with Twitch taking 50% and then I get tax in addition, it would have been absolutely paltry compared to the amounts you've already donated directly to the charity. Mind and I are both surprised, delighted and grateful for everything you've already given. As we go into the interview, if you do sub or donate, you won't see an on-screen notification. We won't be able to have an actual conversation if getting sort of constantly distracted, but you should see your name on break and ending screens. That being said, our mods will be taking your questions over the break, so have a think about what you'd like to ask during our initial conversation. Bear in mind that Kirsty is under NDAs, as am I actually, so may not necessarily be able to answer your questions. I hope that was super clear and cool with everybody. Those are the initial notes. We're going to have just some extra special stuff to say before we get started if I get emotional. So be it. I know a lot of you watching tonight will be Baldur's Gate 3 fans, so before I introduce Kirsty properly, I'd like to first thank her for her instrumental role in what's become my big break, and to get me out of the way before we talk about her. I graduated from Guildhall, which is a world-class classical conservatoire drama school, back in 2009, and I had been grafting away ever since. I go into much more detail about this very long journey in my BAFTA Breakthrough statement. It's linked via my About page here on Twitch. Click on the photo under the heading I am a BAFTA Breakthrough. But it was essentially a case of not even getting to audition for film, TV and theatre. Like anything where my face would be seen, and that was on account of my apparent ethnic ambiguity and my gender expression, so that was fun. I've primarily worked in audio and games where, funnily enough, you won't see my face so much, so yeah, I've been very blessed by the success of this game. So tonight's guest, Kirsty Gillmore, recommended me for Karlach back in 2020. I auditioned but I didn't get an offer, and although her background was pretty much the same, the character of Karlach was very different back then. Then fast forward 2 years to 2022, the director of publishing at Larian was very enthusiastic about the performances in The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow, and Twitter worked back then, so I could see it, and I played the lead in that. And actually shortly after all this happened, I got longlisted for a BAFTA Games Award for my performance as Thomasina, which was no mean feat for a micro indie. and in Baldur's Gate is like the second time I've been longlisted. I then slid into his DMs, as you do, and asked if I could audition for a significant role in Baldur's Gate 3. It seemed I'd very much missed the boat on a leading part, but if I was to get a chance, and he thought that I was that good, it was time to be very specific. He immediately got in touch with Pit Stop Productions, where we all did the performance and voice capture. Josh Whedon, one of our directors who was also casting, apparently remembered me from the 2020 audition that Kirsty had set up and got me to do 2 rounds of auditions for the Karlach that you see in the final game. One at home and a recall in the mocap volume. It was the fastest offer I've ever received in my career. Karlach was written and ready to go, and we started my marathon run on the game within a couple of weeks. For those of you who don't know, I did around the same time amount of time total in the studio as the other Origin companion actors. I just did it over a much smaller time period. I benefited from decisions made and lessons learned during early access, but I'm saying all this because it took 2 years and 3 people to get me there. The title of this show has a few different applications for me. Talent is not enough. You also need endorsement, often from multiple sources. Right, shall we? Hello, Kirsty, are you there? Kirsty, can we just do a quick sound test?
Hello.
Oh, can you hear Kirsty?
Yes.
Can we hear Kirsty? Please chat.
Hi.
Yes. Yes. All right. That saved us 5 minutes from last week.
I can hear. I can only hear you when I've got Twitch on.
Oh, hello. Right. Let me see what I've done. Oh, that'll be why. Ah, hello.
Ah, hello.
I thought too many things are unmuted. Now you can hear me in real time. I'm so sorry about that. No. Right, now the actual introduction. You've got me out of the way, and then it'll all be you, baby. So, without further ado, Kirsty Gillmore is a freelance voice and performance director, casting director, and dialogue producer. She has directed and cast over 50 game titles, as well as animation and audio drama projects, working with studios and actors all over the world, including Baldur's Gate 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Destruction AllStars, upcoming titles Lunar Abyss and The Quiet Things, and animated series Shasha and Milo. Kirsty has directed and taught at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, and the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and has been a speaker and panellist for GDC, GameSoundCon and BAFTA. Kirsty's also a sound designer with over 20 years experience for live and audio projects. In 2021, Kirsty was selected for the prestigious BAFTA Breakthrough programme as a voice director for games. Her socials are @SoundsWild, that's with an E on the end, pretty much everywhere except LinkedIn, where you can find her under her name. Type the command guest into chat and you'll see these links for yourself. So we go way back. We first met at a narrative gaming conference called Adventure X back in 2018. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. And did we? But when I think we actually met earlier than that. It was BAFTA Breakthrough. I think we might have met, or maybe it was after then. I can't remember. But I know we met. No, yeah, maybe we met at Adventure X and then we met at BAFTA Breakthrough at some point.
Because I think I got in. Yeah. I was one of those that got in just before COVID happened. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we must have.
It was
yes,
a lovely
right.
WhatsApp group. It was a lovely WhatsApp group.
It was a lovely WhatsApp.
And I think you were still doing bits of acting work when I first met you, and you were still making every actor's video game reels.
Yes,
well.
Yes. When we met, my primary at the time I was, and I still do voice acting. I still act, just not very much anymore. I'm a much better director than I am an actor. And when I figured that one out, that was a happy day for everybody. I didn't say that so much. Hopefully my
the problem is if you make jokes, if I'm quite dry as well, you see, and if you say that, they'll believe you. But you'll get lots of love in the chat.
Okay, well
that's very self-effacing and also incredibly accomplished.
I still narrate audiobooks, which is probably the most amount of acting I still do. So I still narrate a number of audiobooks a year. And I fitted that around other things. So yes, when we met, I was producing gaming voice demos for actors. Right. And I did that. I produced voice reels for actors for about 9 years. I think I did that in total. Yeah. And by the time the pandemic hit, I was ready to give that up and concentrate on directing. And I'd got more, and I'd built up more directing and casting work. And then when the pandemic hit, I was ready to do that. And it was really getting the Baldur's Gate 3 job in January 2020. I started working Baldur's Gate 3 that really pushed me over the edge. That kind of allowed me over the course of 2020, we all know how 2020 went, but over the course of that, I was very, very fortunate in the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 and a lot of other gaming projects allowed me to then give up doing voice demos and just concentrate completely on doing directing and casting. Yeah, so yes.
we were sort of ships in the night for a while, weren't we? We would see each other at social events and game conferences, and we'd always get on, but we didn't work with each other very much. But you've been constantly recommending me for projects since day one. And we first worked together, I think, on Natalie Winter's Ragged Scratch podcast. That was the first time you directed me, I think.
Ooh, yes, and that was probably 2019. Was it? Does that sound right? Yeah, it was that. That's right. It was the one where it was the piss take of the horror, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little parody. It's out there on a podcast. It's called the Ragged Scratch podcast. Then you audio engineered Persuasion by Jane Austen, the audio drama.
Yes, I actually I co-produced that.
Co-produced that as well. Okay. And then you've also worked on Sandman for Audible. Both of those were for Audible. Tracy Wiles was also in Sandman, and she's in chat. Small world chat.
Hi, Tracy. Love you, Tracy.
And then the last thing we did before Baldur's Gate was you kindly joined me on Game Voices Connect in 2020, back when I thought, I'll just do a fun thing because this isn't going to last very long. So that was a series of industry-facing panels that I curated. It's also on YouTube as a playlist if you want to see. We had so many happy hours together with Baldur's Gate 3. It was real play, you know, just vibing, and you really just understood that character, and we just flew through a lot of dialogues. Just got it.
Yeah,
how are you really tonight, and what is going on in your life?
What's going on in my life? Apparently
professionally.
Let's not get too heavy on the third day of 2024.
You've got a workshop coming up, haven't you?
I do, yes. Thank you, Sam.
Seamless.
In fact, I do, seamless. So what am I doing? Before I talk about the workshop, I've got an animated series that I worked on, poured my heart into, called Shasha Milo, is released on Pop UK on January the 8th. It's a kids animated show. It's an action comedy show. It's about a boy and a girl who can take the form of cats, as well as they have superpowers, which means they can turn into cats. That's probably about as much as I can say. That's definitely been in the trailer, so I can definitely say it. But it's called Shasha Milo, and I worked on that since December 2021, I think, because it's an original animated series, and they are animating to the voice, and that's fabulous. I can't really say that much more about that because it hasn't come out in the UK yet. It has been out in Canada, and it's worldwide as well, but it hasn't quite come out in the UK.
Is it a Canadian production then? Is that what it's No, okay, well, good for you, Canada.
Do you know, this is the weird thing about animation, in terms of, it's made by, we cast and recorded it in the UK. It is US accents, but we cast and recorded it in the UK. And the production company is actually French. The animation company's Korean. Canada, I can't remember what channel it's on in Canada. I think it's the Family Channel, they call it. They just happen to be the ones to pick it up. So
very good. Very good.
Yep, nothing to do with Canada apart from Go Canada for broadcasting it. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where there's a lot of other international channels as well. It's also going out in Latin America, in Latin American Spanish. It's going out. It's already in Korea, in Korean. I think it's due to go out in China. Yeah, it's quite animation when you get down to it is often it's a lot of different companies buying, selling internationally, and all that kind of thing. So there's that, which I'm really excited about. It's coming out. I'm currently working on a couple of projects for Audible, a podcast that I'm casting, a fiction podcast I'm casting for them. What else am I doing? Games that I can't talk about. And yes, I've got a workshop. So on January the 13th and 14th, I'm doing a 2-day workshop about creating characters for games called Embrace. Oh no, I've now forgotten the name of it. Embrace, how we go? Embrace, Inhabit, and Embody. Well done, Kirsty. Good job. Embrace, inhabit, and embody. And I'm doing that with Randall Ryan, who is a US-based casting and voice director and a good friend. We've already run 2 workshops together in Brighton over the past 2 years, and now we're bringing it to London. We've got a few places left. I'm not sure the best way to share the link.
You can email it to me, or you can put it in chat.
Yeah, okay, here we go. All the information's on my website if anybody's interested, but it is in London in the UK.
I think we've shared your website.
If you go onto my website, then it's under workshops and talks.
There you go. One of the mods has put that up for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also pinned. Oh yes, so it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Cats, a lot.
Thank you.
It's there, but it's in person, isn't it? Someone was asking if it was remote.
Yes, it is. No, it's not remote. Remote workshops is something I'm looking into in the future, but at the moment it is in person. Yeah, it's a 2-hour, it's a full 2-day course, UK time from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. at night. So it is definitely in person. Nobody wants to stay on Zoom that long. But there might be a chance. I am hopefully going to be doing some online workshops in slightly more US friendly times later in the year. I'll put everything on my socials.
And if you're just joining, if you type the command guest into chat, you'll get all of Kirsty's socials there, so you can follow along.
But so that is what I'm currently up to. As always, I've got a number of projects I can't talk about. And number of projects I can talk about. So it's a every year's a
you're busy.
I'm busy. Being a freelancer, I mean, it's a weird time in the games industry, isn't it, at the moment? Like it's definitely I've had a lot of friends affected, a lot of colleagues affected by the redundancies, and as a freelancer I'm not affected because I don't work for any one company. But it has definitely had an impact on the work I've done.
Yeah.
And the work I haven't done. Yeah. Yes. But yeah. So.
All right. So, let's start at the beginning, I think. Because you have so you grew up in New Zealand.
Yes. Right? Yes.
And university educated there too, right?
Yes.
And then you came to the UK.
Yes.
But you studied 2 degrees. Is that right?
I did. I did a Bachelor of Music in music and a Bachelor of Arts in theatre and music and English. I'm forgetting something. German, I think. Yeah, it was very, very common at the time in New Zealand. I don't know whether it still is, but to do 2 degrees at the same time. So it's
I thought you'd done one and then did the other. Like this just gets more and more amazing. I just did 2.
No, I think so I do have. It's not. I do have like a
total sense.
About music. It just means when you're. You performing arts schools and like drama schools, you are there from like early in the morning to late at night, and you do a full day, and that's what you do. But most university degrees, you're not there for the whole time.
Not the arts ones.
Not the arts ones. No, medical, sure, fair. But for the arts degrees, I had like housemates, who were like had an hour of lectures a day or 2 hours a day or whatever. But because I was studying 2 degrees, and one of them was a performance music degree, I started at 8 o'clock in the morning. Actually, it started at 7 o'clock in the morning because that's when practice rooms open, and I was there until rehearsals finished, which would be 9, 10 o'clock at night. I know.
3 years or 4 years? Was that
4 years? You do. Two degrees over 4 years, and then because I'm a massive sucker for punishment.
Which is why you freelanced in the game industry.
Yeah, exactly. And then I did a 2-year postgraduate in sound engineering after that.
But it all makes sense with the directing. Like, there's obviously, I mean, you've pretty much done every sort of role you can do in sound from this, because I did notice that you're a composer as well. I didn't know that under your live.
I did. I don't really do that much of that anymore, to be perfectly honest. But there was a time when I was doing some composition for. I probably wouldn't call myself a composer now, to be honest. I'm just not. I didn't pursue it well enough. But it was very electronic based, if I'm honest. But
it all counts. I just think it's amazing that you've pretty much done everything you can do with sound. Like, I think that's what you haven't done. But might not be worth doing, I suppose.
I mean, I've done music production, but I wouldn't call myself a music producer anymore because I haven't done it for a really long time. So I've done a lot of, I've done broadcast, I've done radio. I can't, I mean, there's definitely specialties out there that I don't know. Oh, I haven't done a lot of. I have done game dialogue, but I haven't done sound design for games. So I haven't done game
Ah,
audio. I have done game audio. I do very much consider myself working in game
yeah.
audio. But I've done dialogue production. A lot of dialogue production for games, but I haven't done sound design for games.
Mm.
I work with sound designers a lot.
Mm.
And I definitely haven't done audio implementation for games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'd be a bit crap at that, to be perfectly honest.
Sure, you'd pick it up, Kirsty. I'm sure you'd work it out, mate.
Yeah.
Were you always heading towards games, or you found a happy home there? Because I think a lot of us sort of stumble in, don't we?
Yeah, I think. I mean, without revealing exactly how old I am, I've been playing games for well over 35 years. 35 years, something like along those
Straight
lines.
out the womb.
Yeah, so it's yeah, that's right. So I remember like the first games I played were DOS based. That'll give you a good idea of how old I am. And you know, we couldn't afford, my family couldn't afford to have game consoles. We didn't have a computer at home, but we had, but I had friends who did. So I used to go around to friends' places and play. And then when I got older, I had partners who played. I had more friends who played. I played at university. You know, I remember playing Quake mods when I was at Sound School. So there's a Quake mod called Urban Terror, which I think is now actually a standalone. I think they made it into a standalone
game.
Yeah, but it was definitely a mod. It was a really, really janky mod, and it used to crash all the time. But we loved it, and there was like a level set where they designed it around Saving Private Ryan. You know, I don't know if there's a bit in like a French village, and there was a whole level set. Yeah, I know. It's a bit weird.
Sure.
So I was always I always played games. Like games was something that I really enjoyed doing. And I think that when I studied, when I finished my my degrees in New Zealand, I was like, well, what do I do now? Because I didn't know that games was an option. And even when I finished my postgrad in sound, I didn't know games was an option. And then I moved to the UK on a one-way ticket because I had a visa. My grandparents were born here, and at the time I could get a visa. I'm now a citizen after much money in many years, but it's a British citizen. But but at the time I didn't think games were an option, and I don't think I started thinking about working in games seriously and probably until about 2015, I think. So quite recently. Like I've been directing,
actually.
Yeah, I've been directing for a long time, but I only started, I mean, I had probably started thinking about working in games kind of in that sort of a few years before that, but I'd say 2015 is probably when I started actually going, like properly pursuing and looking for various bits of work in games. Maybe a bit before then, but yeah, it just didn't occur to me. I didn't know that there was an entryway into it. And it was when I was when I was looking into acting for games, when I was kind of pursuing that sort of path. I would go along to these workshops, and there would be casting directors and voice directors for games, and I was like, oh, that's a job. People do that. And there was like a real light bulb moment. And I remember being at a voice conference a couple of probably about, I'd been working, it must have been about 2017 2018, and I'd been doing directing and I'd been doing bits and pieces, but it was mainly very small indie games, micro indies, a lot of which don't exist anymore. These games were so I did a lot of directing and casting for demos and vertical slices for games.
Right. They just don't make it.
No, they just weren't picked up. Some lovely stuff. I remember games that were showcased at Develop. Really lovely games. And the devs had obviously poured their heart and soul into them, and they just didn't go anywhere. They didn't get any funding. No, they couldn't find a publisher, and they couldn't afford to self-fund. And that's so common. So there was quite a lot of that. There was one game where not only did the website disappear, they'd paid me about a third of it. The website disappeared, but the Gmail address just disappeared as well. So that really, I don't know what happened. It didn't exist. Yeah. So it was kind of a couple of months. I'd done about a third of the what I was directing on that, what the kind of the content I was providing for that, and then I went back to them and said, is there anything out, you know, what's happened, and everything just bounced. So that was pretty, I don't know what happened to them, but yeah, that was that was quite extreme. That
someone in chat says it was all a dream.
Yeah, it was. I do sometimes wonder some of the games. I can't really talk about some of the games I've done. Some of the games I've done because they're terrible. It's not all Baldur's Gate 3 and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Some of the stuff I've done has been absolutely terrible. But we don't talk about that.
No, sure. So, we certainly don't name them.
We certainly don't name them. But yeah, just quite a lot of the stuff I've done, like, it just doesn't exist anymore. Like, it doesn't exist. It never went anywhere, which is a bit upsetting. But I remember in about 2017, 2018 maybe, I remember being at a voiceover conference, and it was in a session with a voice actor, voice actor who was talking about her own journey, and it was getting, if I'm being honest, and why not, it was getting a bit woo for me. It was a little bit not spiritual, but it was just a little bit. It got a little bit magical thinking. For me, kind of the direction. This is not a criticism of the person who was talking. It was just the way that it happens. I'm from New Zealand. We're very down to earth, and I found it a little bit. It was like, what do you call it when you request stuff from the
manifesting?
Manifesting. Yes, it was manifesting. And I was like, and it was getting a little bit in that kind of direction. And I was like, oh, starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable with this. Doesn't really jive with my incredibly practical nature. And then she said, look, I want everybody in the audience, I want you to just write down what your biggest dream is, you know, the biggest thing you can think of. And I was like, come on, Kirsty, you can do this. This is fair enough. This is goal setting. And you don't, and you know, and if you feel proud, if you feel good about it, you can get up and yell it to the world. I was absolutely not going to do that.
Yeah.
No way in hell. But I wrote it down. And what I wrote down was, I'd like to direct a AAA game. And at the time, it felt so far away. It didn't feel like that was something that was even, I felt the steps I was making were so little, and I was like, this just feels like I know people who direct these AAA games. I'm talking about voice and performance directing. I know people who do that. I know people who, you know, and I am not them. That is not me. I don't have those opportunities. I don't know what those pathways are. I don't know how to get there. And I wrote it down. And the first AAA game that I directed, I don't know whether we're counting. I don't know what BG3 falls into, to be perfectly honest.
AAA.
Yeah, it's
I'm going on budget.
You're going on budget.
Yeah.
But the first AAA game that, you know, was a game called Destruction AllStars, which was a PS5 title. A new PS5 title, and I did all the directing on that. So all the voice directing on that. So it's a and when that happened, I was like, and I remembered back.
Oh, it's happened.
Moment. Yeah, it's happened. So, but I remember at the time, and at the time, I just thought it just felt so far away. I felt, I know the people who do this, and it's not me. I can't get
That's
there.
interesting, because from an acting perspective, you don't. I mean, I had a similar thing. It's like, yeah, that'd be cool one day to do a AAA, and you're not specific about it, because that's self-defeating. But the actors I know, of course, they work everywhere, from micros to indies to AAAs, and back again. I mean, Doug Cockle said in an interview, people were so surprised he was doing indies after he did The Witcher, but where was he going to go? Like, is he just now going to play leads? And probably not. You know, it's not the way it works. So we bounce around. You know.
Oh yeah,
which means the quality is great. The quality is fantastic because
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think at the time for me, because I do a lot of indies, as you know, I direct a load of indies. I've directed Doug on several indies, for several, I love Doug, and AAAs as well. And I just think at the time for me, it felt like that's where the big people were, if that makes sense. Yeah. That's where everything was happening, you know, and it just, because all of the workshops that I was going to, I made a really conscious choice when I decided that I wanted to focus more on directing for games and animation. I made a really conscious choice about going to these workshops that were being taught by game and animation casting and voice directors, and going there to study specifically how they directed. So I sat in there as as an actor, but I wasn't there to. I mean, I was there to learn, but specifically, I was there to learn about how they directed and to watch what they did and how they brought actors out of themselves, because there is nowhere to train. You can train as a theatre director, and I have trained in theatre directing. You can train in movie directing, film directing. You can train in TV directing, but it's very, very hard to train in voice directing for games or performance directing for games, and there just isn't a route into it. I mean, I think there is starting to be, but I think it's not something, a lot of people, it is something that people move into from various places. And I just saw these people doing, they were people who did AAA stuff. They were people like Andrea Toyers and my friend Randall and Tom Keegan and Kate Saxon and lots of other people that I can, that I know. So it's so I think the idea of doing a AAA game to me felt like legitimacy. Yeah. When I felt, even though that I did have a lot of experience by that point, I didn't feel legitimate in what I was doing. Yeah, because it wasn't.
You want people to see you, don't you? As well.
Exactly.
You want to be able to tell someone, because when you say you're an actor, they always say anything I've seen, and you always go, no, but I promise I've done lots and that. But now I get to go like, do you know games? Yeah, I'm in this game called Baldur's Gate 3, and they'll know it. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows what it is. People who've never played games know what it is. It's not on. It's not. I've not really seen it advertised on the side of a bus or on TV, but people know what it is.
Yeah, I have to say it's. I say this a lot to. I say this a lot to people, but this is the first. Baldur's Gate 3 is the first game that I've worked on where other developers have said to me, "Oh my god, I love that game."
I love seeing the devs go squiffy over the game.
I know, it's just.
Really, I've known some of these people for a very long time.
I know, and they just get really. And I think I've worked on. So I did voice and casting direction for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and that was to that point. At that point, that was the biggest game I'd worked on, and that felt quite a reasonable deal. When I got the email asking me to work on it. I was going to say, I've
seen more about that. I think more people would probably have known that, right?
Yes,
Everyone's
exactly.
heard of Call of Duty, right? Because every newspaper says that's the reason we're all violent.
Yeah, and that is and that is on the side of a bus. And seeing that and like, where was I? I was thinking it was in Piccadilly Circus. I'm like, oh my god, I worked on that game. I mean, it's even my family don't play games at all, have heard of it, even if they know it as the shooty game. That's fine.
That's fine. It's not inaccurate.
Yeah, and that's fine. But you tell other devs that you worked on Call of Duty, and they're like, "Oh, cool, yeah, great. Well, obviously we know what that. Obviously we know what that is. We know what it does." But it's not like a. And I definitely have devs say I really play, I play every Call of Duty that comes out. I thought the campaign for Modern Warfare 2 was really great, blah, 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 all of that kind of thing. And that's all great. But Baldur's Gate 3 is the first game that I've had devs just come up to me and say that they loved it. I loved it. I love the performances. I have, messages from people who I haven't spoken to in years. I had a message from a theatre director friend today who's a gamer going, "Oh, I just want to say I played Baldur's Gate 3 over the Christmas break, and I really love it, and I think all the performances are excellent." It's just, so that's been the nicest thing, because you know what it's like. You talk to devs and often, you go, "Oh, what have you been working on recently?" And if they work for a really big games company like, I don't know, Riot or Blizzard or whatever, they might go, "Oh, we're working on this." And you're like, "Yes, of course, I've heard of that. What are you working on?" And if you're working on an indie title and you go, "Cool, I'm working on, this particular indie title," and they go, "Oh, cool, well, then what's that about?" And you give them like a little one line. They go, "Oh, that's cool," because we are genuinely interested in each other's work. But then you're like, "Cool," and then you move on.
Yeah.
Unless it's like an indie title which has got some kind of massive acclaim or something like that. But I think, Baldur's Gate 3 is the first time I've gone to gaming conferences with game devs and they've gone, "I love the game."
Yes, I think you're right, and I think it's the same in film, TV, and theatre. Like, you get this respect of other people. They know what you've done, but they've not necessarily experienced it, and they're not fans.
Yeah,
they'll respect the fact you've done it. It's great. But this lot, they were talking like like just gamers, you know, just going, this game's amazing.
You know,
okay,
yeah,
thank you. And I remember
One-
bringing some of the mocap folks down to
Game
Social, and they got all the love, you know, they hadn't experienced, you know, well, particularly the actors have been getting. And to hear that this person did the mocap, you know, and the audio engineers, people were just all over them, and they loved it, of course.
And I think there's just something, it's something, one of my favorite things to do at the moment is if I have a dev who says to me, I love Baldur's Gate 3, I ask them what their favorite moment is, because it's really beautiful to hear what people take about it. And some people talk about the 3 trolls, which is hilarious because I remember directing a couple of those sessions. And some people talk about you know, things that I didn't do, you know, that I didn't do. And some people will say, I really love this bit. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, no, I did do that bit. So it's kind of, it's lovely to hear what other people, everybody's got their own unique thing. I really, you know, this really got to me because it was funny or touching or, you know, really important, or I thought this direction was amazing, you know, I thought this performance was amazing, or they just really love this particular game mechanic, or they love this, or, you know, they love the way Amelia says authority.
Well, that's universal, isn't it?
I mean, that is universal. The amount of times I directed her saying authority, so many times. But it's a so that's really cool to hear. Just to hear people's personal responses to it has been really really special, I think.
So moving on from being recognised finally in the industry, you were a BAFTA Breakthrough in 2021. You were actually one of my references in my own successful application. At a time when I was still under NDA and I wasn't allowed to say it was Baldur's Gate 3. I actually got in on Hobbs Barrow, in case you're watching and going, what happened? But what was it like to be the first casting and voice director chosen for this scheme? It's been running for 10 years now.
It was a massive surprise. I was on a train to Brighton when I got the email. It came earlier than we were told, so I just randomly opened my emails, and I did like a really small scream, and the woman across from me was like, okay, yeah, weird. And I'm like, hi, sorry, can't tell you anything about it. It's really
I work in games.
I
can't tell you anything.
It was, again, it just felt like legitimacy. It felt like the industry was taking me seriously. I really didn't think I had much of a chance of getting in, because it's very hard to tell when you're outside of the process. And now I've been a BAFTA, you know, been a BAFTA Breakthrough. I've been a BAFTA member. I've been on BAFTA Games juries. I've been on BAFTA Film juries. I know a little bit more about the inside process of how that whole thing works. But at the time it felt really unknown, and but it did feel like a real, oh good, I'm on the right path. Right, yeah, I am doing the right thing. I am, and not to say that if I hadn't got, I wouldn't be doing the wrong thing. That's not like that. But I talked to a lot of the breakthroughs from my year, that year, and from the year next, the year that's just 2022, and in 2020, and it's kind of this idea that recognition of your peers, because you are judged, but you are chosen by your peers. It is the selection is done by a group of people who from the industry. I think that makes a really big difference. And I know I can't tell you what what a difference it's practically made to my career, because it's very hard to tell. I don't know whether I've got some of the jobs that I've got because I was a BAFTA Breakthrough, and BAFTA carries weight, but I do know that for me personally it was a big personal boost. And it just shone a light on an area of games which is still quite under-recognized. People talk a lot about the actors.
I was the first actor to come through on a game, so every other actor in 10 years has not come through on a game. And I think because Hobbs Barrow was longlisted, I felt very emboldened, having had no budget whatsoever, to make it into the top 10 in a year that God of War was. They had a bit more of a budget than we did, but the fact that the members were noticing that performance, and they said I didn't promote it, and they weren't able to promote it outside of Twitter. Like, it was sort of miraculous, and I thought, okay, well maybe there is something in this, and so I went for it, and it's quite interesting because I've had a lot of people go, oh, this must be really exciting, and I don't know what's coming. In case you're wondering what we're talking about, it's a careers initiative that BAFTA to win. BAFTA are known for the awards, obviously, but they're also a charity and they do a lot of outreach work, and this is one of many things they do. And yeah, so the idea is they sort of set me up with meetings and things, and a bit of promotion and a nice photo shoot, and as you said, it carries a lot of weight with people. But I in no way I'm going to be able to quantify it, at the moment, at least, if ever, what sort of impact that will have on the career. But I am very flattered myself, I must say. I guess we'll see, won't we? I guess we'll see in a year's time or two, like, if that's actually made any difference that I can name.
Yeah, it is a weird, but yeah, it's a like I got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It is the most recent Modern Warfare 2, in case anybody's wondering, as in the one that came out most recently. So I definitely got that after I got BAFTA Breakthrough. So potentially, but who knows? Yeah, it's very hard to say, but I know that it felt that a lot of people were like, oh, this job exists for games. I had a few people say to me like, oh, I didn't, and a few people say, you know, this is now something I want to do because I now know it exists.
Yes.
Which is,
it's interesting being the first, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even in this day and age with the first, you always think that might have been done, but we're still doing that. It's a very nice privileged position to be in. So I hope this all opens the doors. I think certainly for actors in games, I think the fact that we've all gone crazy on social media might encourage others to do so in future. Any other big game sort of comes out, and I hope they do. Because it's a lot of this comes from fans. You know, I don't think fans particularly care about A-lister status. They really don't care. They if it's a good performance, they'll connect to it, and that's really heartening, because that doesn't seem to carry across into the more visual media.
No, and I mean, there's still a certain amount. I mean, every single, like I was quoted. I was interviewed for an article in the Independent in the UK. I'm around the same time as the PC Gamer article, which was specifically talking about. I don't know where it is, and anyway, I think it's paywalled to the Independent, but it's but it's one of the things they asked was about celebrities in games, because of Phantom Liberty and Idris in Phantom Liberty.
Yeah, Phantom Liberty.
And it was Idris Elba in Phantom Liberty. I'm saying Idris like I know him. I don't know Idris Elba. That's not someone that I know. No,
I don't think anyone here does. I think we're
right. That's fine. Yeah. Just in case people think I'm just dropping names, I don't know Idris Elba.
You're very entitled to.
If you want to. But they, because of that, and it happens every single year. So as a casting director, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about celebrities and games. And
when you're paying that much money for them, which you are, you don't want to be anything but Idris Elba. And for me, that breaks the illusion. Yeah. It's like, oh, look, it's Idris Elba. I'm now taken out of the. I mean, but if they make him different, then you'll feel as the developer that your money's not gone very far.
Yeah, I think it's I was asked by the Independent, who I can't remember who the journo is, which is terrible of me, but it was a while ago. They said that they asked like how it happened, why people cast celebrities, and generally it's a marketing decision. That comes from marketing, but I think a lot of the time it's who is your ideal person to play this particular role. Well, we had Idris Elba in mind for this. Hey, how much would it cost us to get Idris? Just using Idris Elba as an example, how much would it cost us to get him? Let's see, could we make that happen? Would he be interested? And I think a lot of those conversations happen in that sort of a way. It is. I don't know. It's a fine line, because we know from data that celebrities don't sell games. Gamers play it for the gameplay experience. That's what it's about. Gamers, I don't buy games for celebrities anyway. But
it's also an idea that that it's an assumption that a gamer is going to be maybe more of a film buff than a games buff.
Yeah.
So I'll play it now. Me, a huge gamer. I play games all day, but I wouldn't have played it unless they put a celebrity. It just doesn't. They're not marketing maybe a few decades behind on exactly how fragmented culturally we are now. We're not all going to see, Star Wars in 1977 on the same weekend. It doesn't happen anymore. Like, people are now doing their own thing. So this assumption that, if we get someone from a completely different type of entertainment to come, you'll definitely want to play it. It's a bit of an odd one.
You say that about films, but then there was Barbenheimer, where everybody did go out and see.
That was sweet relief of a weekend of a non-Marvel release.
Yeah,
that was for some people. That was the first time in their adult lives.
I
remember the time when there was no Marvel movies every week being made, which relied on you watching 20 other Marvel movies. Right, let's go for it. We're kind of going for it, but let's go for it some more. We're both neurodiverse, and we appear to the world as women. What's that been like for you, Kirsty? Especially when you're in your role as a director, you do hold the most authority in a room.
Yes. How do I unpack 20-something years of being? This
is why I tried to prep you for
in this industry. How has that been?
Have you been treated in the same way as your male counterparts?
Oh no. I think I can't remember when, because it's always been present. I can't remember when sexism wasn't a part of my working life. My years working in sound, I was one of the very few women and female presenting people to be in sound, to be working in professional audio throughout my career. I was one of 2 women who graduated from my class of sound engineers. It's been everything from overt sexual abuse to microaggressions, and everything in between. So it's been hard. Yeah, it's been tough. I say it's been tough, but I am tougher.
I think you are. Yeah, hopefully it's got a bit easier over the years.
I think it's just as I've got more experience, I still feel it. It's just, it's less to my face and more insidious these days. It comes in the form of not being given certain work and not being paid, discovering that you're actually being paid at a lower day rate than a cis male director with less experience. There is still there is a story that I really, really wish I could tell, which massively illustrates it, but I can't. That's very teasy. Let's say
have a think about it during the break.
Okay, no, I'm going to word this. I cannot. It's not because the actor's particularly well known, but there was a situation with an actor in a studio whose behaviour, basically, because he is male, and he is cis male, he behaved in such a way in a studio to get away, because he could get away with it. He had bad behavior. It wasn't. It was the way he behaved deliberately was designed to deliberately make whoever was directing and whoever was in the studio uncomfortable, so that he had the power balance, and people let him get away with it. And when I put my foot down about when I discovered, and I was warned in advance that this was going to happen, and I was like, it's not happening in my booth, not doing it in my sessions. This isn't appropriate. It's not, and unfortunately, I can't go. I can't go into details about it, but it was appalling to me that it had been tolerated. And I discovered later that at least the most recent sessions this actor had done had been with male directors, and it had been tolerated. And then it was I felt it was suddenly beholden on me to speak up about it. And because I didn't, it was behavior that made me uncomfortable. It made my crew uncomfortable, my sound engineers uncomfortable, and it was inappropriate and unnecessary. And I find a lot of that now is being, every time I speak up for something, then that carries a different weight, and the weight it carries is sometimes it is a respected voice, and sometimes it is you are making trouble because I'm still female. And that's something that I've dealt with, that hasn't gone away through my whole career, that I have dealt with the idea of you having, when you raise an issue, that you are potentially seen as then rocking the boat.
Yeah, you're the troublemaker, actually.
Yeah.
Not the person, not the person doing the illegal thing or whatever.
Yeah, not
harassing
exactly.
and that. Yeah. I was in a similar situation in that. Yeah, there was bad behaviour was tolerated because the person's a star. And you're like, okay. And I was warned about them, and actually it was all right for me. But those people could have just like not hired him. They somehow felt obliged. I'm talking about the directors and producers, as if someone had made them hire this person. Stop hiring them. It's fine.
Yeah, stop. Yeah.
And then there was a bit of a scandal. Oh, if only someone had told us. We didn't know. You know, come on, lads, really.
Yeah. No, you were told, and you chose.
Now I don't want to work with you. So
yeah, exactly.
I'll just be poor. It's fine.
Yeah. And that feels, there's definitely felt times in my career, definitely as a director, where it's, do I speak up on this now, and also I am risk not being hired by these people again.
Yeah. But then do you want to work in a toxic? Yeah.
Exactly. So
but
it's
then
there's
not an infinite amount of companies and jobs, and
exactly.
that's the problem about it, isn't it? I'm just going to see how we're doing for time, and if we have to go to a break or not. But mods aren't screaming at me in a lovely, polite way, so I'll just go on. Can you think of a time when someone actually advocated for you, Kirsty? You do so much for everyone else, but and obviously pick something you're happy to tell, or at least can anonymise or whatever.
I mean, I have had a lot of like, talking about my village.
Who's in your village?
Take the village. Who's in my village? I mean, over the years, like I have had a lot of I have had a lot of support from actors. I've had a lot of support from voiceover artists and voice acting friends like yourself who have really, who've really championed me and said how much they loved working with me, and that's been really, really brilliant. I've got friends who work in the industry who I can vent to, and we can offload on each other, and that's all really important.
It's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do have, I think, well, I mean, the people who wrote my BAFTA Breakthrough application, my referees for my BAFTA Breakthrough, Andrew Crawshaw, who is works for is creative director, CEO, I think, of a game company called Thunked, who I did the Magnificent Truffle Pigs with. I'm
going to play that now.
Yeah, and Khaya Ahmed, who was one of the lead writers on Destruction AllStars. And at the time, that felt like they were both so into. When I asked them to be my referees, I was totally expecting both of them to say, I'm so sorry, I'm too busy. And they both said it would be an absolute pleasure, and they were so generous about it with their time. So I think people like that, who have been so supportive, and people who I've worked with, particularly indie companies, have really, when you're like, oh my God, the industry's terrible, and I've just got knocked back from something else again, or it just feels really hard, those days when I just feel like, without sounding too 70-second wave feminism about it, I am massively fighting the patriarchy. And
I mean, it's true. So
yeah, exactly. So it's still going on, but there are days when I'm just like, it feels like the industry is making me be a smaller version of myself. I have to mold myself into what they want to be rather than who I am. And there are on days like that where I'm like, I have a choice here to bite my tongue and be a good girl, or to speak up about something that I don't think is right.
And be able to sleep at night.
And be able to sleep
That's
at
how
night.
I judge things a lot of the time. Yeah,
exactly.
Life's too short.
And I mean, it's happened, and so the people who are there to remind you, go, hey, you do a good job. Hey, look, I think what you do is important. Hey, I really appreciate it that you stand up for me. Yeah. That's really, that makes me feel good. I mean, I've never had a mentor. I don't have any mentors. I really wish I could have had a mentor, but I've never had anybody in that kind of opportunity in my life. A lot of the people that I would have thought of being mentors are kind of now closer to my peers, and that's not bigging myself up, but just that's just the way my, you know.
I'd say you got enough experience to be able to say that.
Yeah.
I didn't say your beginning of the career at all.
Yeah.
So no, it's interesting because I divide, you know, obviously like the people I talk about in games, the people I'm trying to champion with this, is like they obviously are in the industry.
Yeah.
But the people I know are also really awesome and lovely, and I don't think in the circles we're in, the socials we go to, at the conferences we go to, I think you can survive very long if you were an utter arsehole. Like, you just, not in the room, not in a social setting, in a room with other people. I haven't seen it, personally. Maybe you have. Think on it. Think on it, because we've got to cut to break. At their adverts. We all get a break.
Yay. Okay.
Proto-communism for everyone. So how long do you think you need, Kirsty? And we'll work to you.
Oh, 5 minutes is fine.
Okay, cool. Stretch your legs, get some water, do what you need to do. And I shall see you shortly with some more Kirsty Gillmore.
Yay.
Hello, hello. We are back. That music eventually faded. It's very relaxing, isn't it? Right, so I've got a couple more questions for you, and then we will go to Q&A. I think we've got quite a few in, and Kirsty's going to pick and choose at will. Anarchy. We were just before the break talking about how we sort of have to form our own community here, right? The people we know socially who also work in games. We end up advocating for each other a lot, and most recently we were both asked to do a panel at BAFTA Guru in October. It's a series of talks with students and grads in TV, film and games, and it was on the collaborative process between writers, actors and directors in Baldur's Gate 3, and it was one of the rare times I actually got to advocate for a colleague, because it's not, people don't ask actors if they know directors or cast and directors, and it was to do with the fact that no one knew that how we worked. They just thought it was me and you, or maybe it was just me and you, and it wasn't however many directors and engineers we had, but they didn't know that we had performance directors, and I wanted to bring in Gabriel H. Sunana, who's incredible movement director and teacher as well. You know, he's at all the big drama schools. Anyway, the three of us ended up doing it together, and if people don't know that these roles exist, then how do people get that recognition? And we're in this catch-22, aren't we? During that panel, a question was asked regarding advocacy generally, and seeing as this event wasn't recorded, I'm going to ask it again.
Yeah.
You've got a history of recommending not on the radar actors to projects, be they marginalised or so-called unknowns. Has that been frustrating, and what's it like when you've succeeded?
Has it been frustrating? Yeah. What's frustrating about basically, I see it as a way of, I'm passionate about diversity in games amongst all areas of diversity, and when I advocate for representation in games, and when I advocate for opening up wider pools, what's frustrating is often getting the people who then hold the money to recognize the value of doing that. So, I mean, it is frustrating to have to constantly say over and over again to people that if we use the same small pool of actors that we have always used for games, then we are not telling stories truthfully, because we are making games for people to play them, and our players are diverse. And
we're making games for the whole world.
Exactly. We are telling diverse stories, and we can't keep using the same pool of actors who have predominantly been cis, white, and predominantly male. We are not doing the stories justice. We are not doing the creative vision justice. And we are not utilizing this incredible pool of talent that we have out there. And I know that there are people come back and, you know, one of my least favorite things about, you know, the most talented person. We cast the most talented person for the role.
Right person for the role,
yeah. Right person for the role. But if
this whole demographic and not the right person for the role.
Yeah. But if you decide that only this tiny pool of people, that's where you're going to find your right person in, you know, then you are excluding this enormous group of people, and also it's not. You're putting your personal. It's all about your personal subjectivity.
lens.
On it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have. It's not the right person for the role. It's your right person for the role, who you think it is. It can be very frustrating. Again, I can't give a specific about this,
Of course,
but
yeah.
there was a situation in a game that I worked on relatively recently, where there was a senior person in the development team who said, well, I don't think we need to worry about authentic casting, because as far as I'm concerned, it's not an issue. I know the players like that of these games, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not an issue. And saying to somebody who happens to be, as a surprise to no one, a cis white middle class man,
what, really?
I know, but saying to them, although to be fair, I have had this from a lot of different people of a lot of different diverse genders, a lot of different diverse backgrounds. It happened to be on this point, but for this, it's very much saying to them, your experience is not universal. Your personal experience is not universal. You cannot possibly speak for the entirety of your player base. And if you really feel that your experience should be what we are using for the basis of this character, then this character should be a cis middle-aged white man. You know? So having to point that out to people, because people get very, very affronted by it. What do you mean? You don't value, you don't value my experience. I know I've had all this experience.
Very underrepresented.
Yeah.
Cis white male experience in all forms of media.
Yeah, exactly. So that's very frustrating, and it's frustrating when people go, yeah, we agree with this in principle. We would love to do this. We'd love you to get more representation in the cast. We'd love you to do that, but they will not do it at the character creation end, or they won't give me the time to do it. Yeah. So it can take a lot more time to find.
Well, it will, because the structures have been placed to make it easy for certain people and not others. And then then you have this thing of, oh, well, it's going to be expensive and time consuming. You're like, well, yes.
Yeah, it will be.
Deconstructing sociological,
it will be. But in terms of successes, there's a game coming out that I can't talk about, which will come out. I think it should come out later this year, hopefully. Where I was very, very supported in casting choices. The characters are very diverse, and we did a lot to work on that. And I'm really happy about it. You'll see Shasha and Milo when that comes out. I'm really happy about the work that we did on the diversity of that cast, just in terms of it's just an example. Like, if people say to me, and I tweeted this a number of years ago, and a friend of mine quotes it back to me because he thinks it's really great. But basically, I said, if you think you cannot find, if people say to me, I can't, and I know this has been said to you, Sam, I can't find them. You can't find them. I can't find actors of color. I can't find non-binary actors. I can't find gender non-conforming actors. I can't find them. They're not out there. It's just so difficult to find them. You are not looking hard enough. You're just not looking hard enough. For casting directors who tell me, or for clients and for devs, because a lot of indie devs in particular do their own casting, if somebody says that to me, I just couldn't. I really would have loved to cast a really great Black British female actor in this role, but I just couldn't find them. I can't find them. I'm going to tell you a heartwarming story about this. There was a number of years ago when there was a game that was, I'm not going to tell you the name of the game because I don't want them to come under flack. It was a number of years ago when there was a game that was cast that was on Twitter, and they had cast white actors playing black roles.
I remember that.
And yes, and they were doing British accents.
It was a very specific accent.
It was a very specific accent, but
so they'd made it hard for themselves.
They did make it,
but they made that design choice so early on.
Yeah,
they then couldn't change it. They couldn't say, actually, we fucked this one up. Let's go and change it.
So without, because this will
They drove
possibly
through.
identify. Yeah, they drove through. And the thing is, the accent choice was tricky, but
It's not impossible.
it was
There's
not
a thing called
impossible.
Spotlight.
Yeah, and so yes, and the casting director for that game got a lot of flack on Twitter.
Yeah.
And including from me. Not them. I didn't.
I mean,
like
to be fair, if they're a casting director, they should be getting flack.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
like devs. I'm gonna have a word privately.
When I say, like, I didn't say, you know, I didn't know who the casting director was at the time, and I didn't at them or anything. I just commented on the casting decision and said, there are people out here who could easily do this role. I just don't think you looked hard enough. You know, if it was, they said they were really hung up on they decided, because they came on and sort of defended themselves and said that they were really uninterested. You know, they felt the accent was the most important thing, and they basically didn't know. Their casting pool was not wide enough.
Yeah.
Their experience was not wide enough. And that is a really big thing as a casting director, to get to a point where you're like, I don't know. Like, this is beyond, I hope I will never say to myself, oh, because I don't know anybody like this, I can't cast that person, because I personally, this is outside of my own experience. Instead of going, so how do I expand my experience? How can I make this happen? And I'm not saying that, you know, but anyway, that particular casting director got in touch with me a number of years later and said, hi, Kirsty, do you remember when you said this on Twitter? And I went, yes. And they were like, well, that was me. And I was pretty hurt about it at the time, but I really appreciated your honesty, and you were right. Would you like to help me cast this project I'm looking for?
Okay. Yeah. I'm having different feelings, but yeah, no, good.
Good. Yeah. So that was, for me, I was like, okay, good. Yeah.
I mean, as a layperson, and as a lot of our audience well, they're not going to be UK actors either. We have a directory called Spotlight, and I know not every casting director uses it, but every actor is on it. And you can search actors by ethnicity, by the languages they speak, the accents, the countries they're based in, and the passports they hold.
Yes, and we do, and there are other tools.
Like, you can type it in, and you'll see a list of actors.
And I mean,
and then what you do is you audition them, and if they don't have a home studio, you sort them out.
So I'm going to do a plug here for the PGM actor list, which is just in case there are any people looking, any budding indie devs or casting or directors on here. The People of the Global Majority acting list, I think it's called it used to be called PGM VO list, I think it's called. There's also a queer voice directory. There is also a disabled actors voice director, disabled voice actors directory. All of these things exist. They are out there. People can find them. And these are the majority, a lot of actors on there. They're quite US focused, to be fair. But these tools out there completely exist. So this is why I hold true to my, if you are not, you know, if you say you can't find them, you're just not trying hard enough. Do you know what I do when I'm faced by a country that I don't know, or I have no, you know, I will go to my colleagues who know that people, you know, who I know have worked with them, and say, can you recommend people from here? Do you want to cast with me on this?
You just ask around.
You just ask. It's not that hard. Anyway.
And then if you do fuck it up, at least you can say, I did ask around.
I mean, there is one, and it's a game that's coming out next year, so I can't talk about it, but there is one role that I really, really wish I could have found. And the dev ended up changing it. Ended up changing. The character was in quite the early stages, well, early enough stages to change. It is the one time, and if I told you what it was, you'd be like, I don't think that's it. I think the pull was, there was one person. I could find one person. It was very specific.
Very specific, yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, we changed it, and, you know, and I did highlight this as soon as I saw it, and went, and I really worked my ass off to try and find the people for it, but they ended up actually, the character got rewritten.
Yeah.
Because
that's better than
that's better than us. Yeah, exactly. That's fine. Yeah, it's not, but, you know, yeah. It's not, but it's
not ideal, but it's better than just willfully going, well, no, it's going to stay like this, and we're going to tell this story inauthentically.
Exactly. And when it was presented to me, I said, I highlighted it, and I said, this will be very, very hard. This is a very difficult call. And I don't just mean, you know, like I've sourced I sourced a woman in you know, in the middle of Scandinavia who for a child voice. It's a very, it was definitely not just, I mean, I knew who I could go to, I knew the resources, like I knew who I could reach out to, but I said that it's just for this particular specific thing, it's going to be really hard to find someone who is, it wasn't just, could we find someone that was that fitted all the attributes, can they act as well? And yeah, and that's definitely something that we talk about, that I think about. So yeah, there are definite frustrations. However, when it works, it's amazing, and you really feel, one of the things I really love is, and I'm not gifted this power a lot. A lot of people, I don't know whether people realize this, but when you cast actors for games, the person who has the final call is the client, so the devs. Somebody, so it'll be a producer, it'll be a creative director, someone like that. Someone who might not know anything about acting. I say that, everybody thinks they know what good acting is, but someone who doesn't know, you know, so they have the final say. And there's been plenty and plenty of times I've been overruled by the client, you know, plenty of times. But let's give a nice heartwarming example from Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to talk about Dave Jones, who plays Halsin. When the character of Halsin was, when it was at the stage of casting, I read those sides and went, I know who can do this. I know who can do this role. And at the time,
sexy bear man friend.
Yeah, big sexy bear man fan. And I had known Dave Jones as a voice actor for a few years. Like we'd known each other socially. I hadn't directed him before, I don't think. Oh no, I had. That's right. I did his voice demo. So that's right. So I did his gaming demo.
I knew one of them would come through.
I know. I did his gaming demo. So when this came through, I was like, it was for an RP accent, and I was like, Dave is Northern, and Northern UK, and but I knew he could do an RP because I did
a whole game with a heightened RP.
Yeah, and I told,
yeah,
yes, so exactly. Good. But even before Astrologaster, I knew he could do it because I'd done it in a demo. So I got when I saw this character breakdown, I thought, I know who this is. And at the time, Dave's agent was mainly commercial voiceover. Wasn't an agency, still isn't an agency that gets asked to do game auditions. And he's not, I think he's moved agents since then, because this is obviously 4 years ago or somewhere close to it. But it's a not quite 4 years ago, 3.5. But it's a but because I knew Dave and I knew that he could do it, and I wanted to give him a chance. I wanted to give him somebody who, he had done games, but not very many at that point, and I knew he could do this role. I knew he could do it, so I sent him the audition. And
the world thanks you.
And obviously, you know, this is all Dave. This is nothing. This is not to say I made him, but it is.
But we are, you know, our success is down to people like yourself advocating and endorsing us. Because how the hell do we stick out, right? Every actor is going, oh, no, you've not heard of me. I am genuinely really good. How the hell do you stick out unless you have got someone who's in there, like, rooting for you?
And I just, you know, I'd worked with Dave, and he's just a lovely guy, you know. I knew him as a lovely guy who worked really, really hard, and I wanted to give him an opportunity. And he, you know, he totally won it off the strength of his own performance, because it's his audition. All I did was, you know, was get him to do the audition, and then pass it on, going, I think this guy's really good. Please, you know, to the people who actually make the decisions. But it's, but you know, one of the privileges that I am afforded occasionally is being able to make that sort of thing happen. And it's been Baldur's Gate 3 because I've worked on it for such a long time. I've worked on it since January 2020. It's been a really beautiful thing for that. Bethan Dixon-Bate, who plays Blacketh. Bethan auditioned. I got Bethan to audition for a completely different role in Act 1, which she didn't get, but they were so impressed by her that they got her to audition for Blacketh, and she's amazing as Blacketh. And I've cast Bethan in other games that I've done as well. So yeah, it's been that sort of thing has been a real pleasure. It's that's when you can do that, when you can advocate for people like that. And there's an actor who I've worked with on a couple of projects who is very, very good, and they're the lead in a game that I've done. and I had the opportunity to put them in front, to put them in front of the developers and go, you haven't heard of them, but they're amazing, and I can vouch for them being amazing.
Yeah, that's what we need. Yeah,
and they were for us. Yeah, and they were the only choice. They said when the game comes, they'd said when for the role that they got, they said if they can't do it, we've got a real problem here. Yeah.
Yay! Happy.
And I was like, yes, that's right. That's good. Yeah. So that's really good.
So,
yeah.
Kirsty, you're a hard ass certified. I think that's official now. How can someone in your particular position as a freelancer advocate for themselves better? Because as we've discussed, it's a bit of a tightrope, isn't it? What's worked for you?
I think recognizing as one of the things that all freelancers, I think, feel, they definitely feel this, otherwise you don't freelance for long, is the constant push to kind of always be working, or say yes to everything, accept every job. And I think something that we all need to, that freelancers really need to do, is to value that real work-life balance and find something that defines them outside of work. I am very bad at doing this because I play games, I work in games, I socialize with people, my friends are in games. But I think finding stuff that gives you value, finding things that you do that give you value outside of your work life, because that's really important, because when you are a freelancer and you do feel that pressure to say yes for anything, oh my God, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay the mortgage? How am I going to pay bills? I think it's incredibly important to go, actually, my work is not me. What do I want? Not me, Kirsty, the director, but Kirsty, the person. What makes me happy? What fills my cup? What makes me feel like me? And I think that's probably the most, if I was to go back. So this time around freelancing, because I've been freelancing twice, this time around freelancing, when did I start freelancing? 13 years ago, this time around. So if I could go back to the person I was in late 2010, early 2011, and say, and give her some advice, I would say, find things that make you happy that are not your work, because otherwise your work will define you. And when the work goes away for a bit, which it does as a freelancer, that will have a very detrimental effect on your emotional and mental health.
Yeah, because the bottom just drops out, doesn't it? What do you do with yourself?
Yeah,
and you may have based your self-esteem in the arts, essentially, which is going to come down to subjective choice, right? Just because that person doesn't like you, it doesn't mean they've got some arbiter of taste and somehow you are invalid. It just means you're not to their taste. And I think you really need a healthy dose of that self-esteem and other things to do outside of this nonsense. Yeah. Absolutely, I agree. Thanks. That's a very good answer. I think chat are enjoying that very much, though.
Yeah, that's that's what I would say. Yes.
Before we go to Q&A, is there anything that you would like to be asked? Something that never comes up, and you go, "I wish someone. I've got loads of good advice on this, guys." Is there anything? You can think about it during the Q&A.
I'll think about it during the Q&A.
Excellent. I've taken up so much of your time tonight, so I really appreciate you sticking around.
That's good. I like this. This is fun. Okay, right. Q&A.
Shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, so do you have the document in front of you?
I have the document.
I think you pointed out when you wanted to answer first. If you could read out the name of the person who posted it. Oh, while you're doing that, before you do that, thank you, by the way. I did mean to say there was a lot going on during the break for the new subscribers, but also for the people who donated to Mind. Thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. All right, I've done my thank yous. I've got to remember to actually thank people, Kirsty.
Okay, so I'm going to start. That's good, very good for thanking people. So this is from EOIND, Eoined. I don't know. It's a Twitch
This
handle.
is my world now.
Yeah,
I obviously try and pronounce it. It's a bit like working on the game when I went, well, it's D&D,
okay.
so it's not going to sound like how it's spelt, is it? So just give it a go.
Okay, I apologise. Eoined. Actually, my pronunciation of fantasy terms, you have no idea. Oh my God! One day in the distant future.
He says it's Owen.
Sorry, Owen.
He's put a D on it.
They put a D on it.
Did someone else have it? Someone else had it, didn't they? Sorry.
Oh right.
Sorry,
Owen.
mate.
Terribly sorry, Owen. I would have said Owen if it didn't.
But we did see it in the chat.
It's here. Yeah. Simple question. What makes someone a good director? Well, Owen, I am so pleased you asked. I have a whole thing. I have a whole talk about this, actually. Which
Let's
is quite
go.
funny. So, yeah, let's go. Has everybody got 50 minutes to hear Kirsty's talk?
Half
about
of this
what
lot in
makes a good
America.
director?
It's the afternoon. They'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be fine. Okay, what makes a good director? I think what makes a good director is that really, so there's three things. Firstly, have a really clear idea of what you want to achieve. Know for every actor you direct, you know what you want to achieve in that session. Are you establishing a character? Do you have a certain line count or word count you have to get to? Is it pickups or retakes of things? Is it a casting and you are figuring out how well that the actor might fit with that character? What is you have a really clear purpose in each session of what you want to achieve. Yeah. The second thing is that to create a safe space in the booth, whether with your recording or in the mocap volume, wherever you're recording or directing, and that might be a rehearsal room if we're branching it out into theatre and film and TV, or it might be a soundstage. Whatever you're doing, creating a safe space so that your actor or actors feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable and comfortable enough to be collaborative. What I want to create, I think a good director creates a safe environment to allow people to relax and feel like they can make mistakes without repercussions, and feel like they can ask questions and feedback and push back, in a respectful way, obviously, but it should feel like a collaborative process. And really, the third thing is that a good director listens to everyone and speaks only as much as they need to create the performance that's required. So as a director for games, a voice and performance director for games, I listen to the client, I listen to the devs, which might be the writers, could be producers, could be sound designers, whoever's sitting in from the client side. I listen to my engineers, and that might be a sound engineer, it may also be mocap engineer. I listen to any other directors that are around or assistant directors, and I listen to my actor or actors. And those, I take all that on board. I translate as need be because devs don't speak actor and actors don't speak dev, for example. And I say only as much as I need to in order to facilitate a truthful performance of the character and to bring that character to life, because it's not a dictatorship. It's, I think, one of the worst things, well, not the worst, that's a bit strong. One of the things that I find a lot of people who are actors who get into directing do a lot is that what they see the words, they see it and they think about the way they would do it, the way they would perform it. It's a really, I'm not bagging on anybody for this, it's a really common thing to fall into. Because you go, oh, I'd do it like this. And I think one of the big things about being a director that I've really come to understand is that it's not about the way I would do it. It's about the way the character would do it. And
that's interesting, isn't it? Because I've never been directed by a director who said, I would do it like this.
Yeah.
So it's an odd thing for an actor coming and who's obviously experienced being directed to think that. And yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's a bit of an odd one.
It is a bit of an odd one, and I think it's something that I'm really big on, because what you end up a lot with is line reads for that sort of situation. Line reads, for those of you who don't know, for watching it, no, I don't like them either. I have another whole talk about how to avoid them. But it's basically a line read is if you say to someone, do it like this, and then you do the line to the actor the way you think it should be done, and they essentially
and then we copy.
Yeah.
And then you think, just do it yourself, babe. You'll
save
so much time if you just do it.
Yeah, and it's not about the way I hear it in my head. It's about what works best for the character. And there have been plenty of occasions where I have mentally been really stuck. I realize we've done several takes where I'm just stuck on like a specific emphasis or a specific tonality or something, and I have to take myself out of the equation and go, I'm not performing this. This person, this wonderful actor in front of me has been cast in this role. And if I really think that I can do a better job than the actor who has been cast in this role, then it should be me behind the mic. But it's not. I'm directing. They're the ones who have been hired to bring the character to life. So what do I give them to allow that to happen? And I have lots of tricks and tips about getting sort of the reads that I'm looking for. But more importantly is going, how do I get this character to speak in the way that I want? And sometimes something that an actor does is perfect and not at all what I was thinking of. And sometimes what they do is not what I was thinking of, and I can still feel myself resisting, and at the end of the day have to go, you know what? That is the way this character speaks because they are this character. And as long as their performance is truthful and believable and they embody the character, that's all I can ask for.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, on the other end, sometimes I just get stuck. Not often, but once in every other session, I'll just go, can you just look, I'll just do what you want. Because I'm banging my head against the wall. Can you just tell me how you want it to, all right, oh, you want me to emphasise that? Great. But it is that collaboration. And again, if I thought I knew better than the director, then I'm in the wrong job. Yeah. We have to work together.
Also, I've got a total trick to get people to do emphasis without using the word emphasis.
Don't tell me.
No, I'm not going to tell. I'm not telling people.
Don't tell me.
I've got a bunch of them, but that's one of my tricks that I keep. So that to me is what makes a good director. I'm going to answer the one above that. Miller Jab. Miller JB. How many performance directors were on BG3, and were they kind of split off by characters, or how'd that work? Right. So we had both voice and performance directors on Baldur's Gate 3. There are a lot. If you want to have a look at the credits, you can see how many. If you look under Pit Stop Productions, you can see how many people worked on it. A lot. I could probably count them up because I worked on the game for that long, but there's just a lot. No, we didn't split them off by characters. So there are definitely, I mean, people worked on the game for a different amount of time. Because I worked on it for almost 4 years, I worked on a lot of characters, and I worked on all of the leads. For different variations. It's just the work, essentially, in terms of how did it work, what you're talking about is character handovers. So this is really, really common on big games like Baldur's Gate 3, but by no means exclusive to it. If you do have a big game that you are recording over a lot of years, then you will, there is a very high chance that at some point you're going to have to hand over work to another director. Just because, no one person can take on the amount of recording that we had to get through for all that dialogue. So what you end up with is a very collaborative process. We had a lot of ways of communication, lines of communication between directors, where we did hand over things. This is where we got up to at the end of this session. We're picking up the narrative strand here. Can you concentrate on this, this, and this? Here are any notes we hand over. Here is any artwork. Here is any other bits and pieces. And we just basically trusted each other. And we did a lot of, like, there was a lot of, if we feel, I know you worked on such and such on Tuesday, which was 2 days ago. Where did you get up to? What line did you get up to? How far did you go? What did you concentrate on? How was it for the actor? How were they? Is there anything I need to be aware of? So it was just, so there was a lot of handover between characters. I mean, I did work on some, like I worked a lot with Sam, obviously. I worked a lot with Neil Newbin. Over the 4 years. There's some characters, and some of the smaller characters we would, because they were, somebody might only be in for like sort of a few hours, and so you direct their whole characters. But on the large characters, and particularly the leads, you're talking about, there was a lot of different people, so we had a really good handover system. There have been games that I worked on, like for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, I did have the characters I directed. I think I was the only person who directed them because of the way that particular game worked. Yeah, but with Baldur's Gate 3, we just had it, because you're at the mercy with a game that size. With any game, you're at the mercy of writers. It depends. What you record is very much driven by the words that are available. So it would be very difficult to then split it off by characters, because it wouldn't be particularly efficient. So like Sam said, when they came and recorded, Karlach was already written, but that was that was pretty, by, you know, it's you can just see by the amount of patch updates that we've had, you know, there was content being written, you know, over the almost 4 years I worked on it, there was content being written all the time, you know, so it would have been very, very difficult to go, this one person is this one character is only going to be directed by this one person, because it's a long, all of us, you know, the actors are freelancers, the directors are for the majority of the time are freelancers. You can't ask somebody to put their life on hold for, you know, and just go, yeah, just be available. It's not Game of Thrones. We don't, unfortunately, get, you know,
retainers.
Retainers.
Yeah. No, we're hired per session,
per session.
Yeah.
So
that's great though, because you've talked about the practicalities of it, but from an artistic level, it was like, okay, so all the origin characters can romance each other, and of course you'd worked with them, so you knew exactly how they were coming across. And if you'd only worked with me, how would we have navigated that?
Well, exactly.
What would we have done?
Like, you know, you can know that, and as you've said, Sam, you were recording by yourself in the booth. So, but for somebody to be able to go, for the director to be able to go, oh, actually, Lae'zel would approach this line more like this. Yeah. You know, potentially, or I think that was it was like, there were several scenes I did where I directed, where I ended up directing like every single person in that scene. That happened a reasonable amount, and sometimes that was happenstance. Sometimes very occasionally we tried to make that happen. You know, if the scheduling worked out. I would say that some of the characters, that were fewer of us directing, I was one of the, so I directed Amelia, the narrator, a lot over the past since January 2020, and for her particular character, the narrator is very specific, and so there were fewer people directing her, for example. Yeah, just because it's very specific. And one day I will be able to talk about the subtleties of the narration and how amazing Millie is at creating.
I mean, she's been doing it. I think the cat's out of the bag if you want to.
Possibly, but it was just very, like, the way we talked about it, and I wrote it all down at one point. At one point earlier this year, I wrote down every single style.
Oh, amazing! Yeah.
At some point
please put that all over Twitter once you.
Yeah, well, once I can,
yeah,
I can talk about it, because I think it's a real testament to Millie's skills, how much how much she worked on that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we have another question.
Yes. I think I've actually already answered this.
You've answered a lot, because you've covered the director question very nicely. So well done picking that first.
Let's have a look. Oh, I know. As a long-term gamer, one of my favorite games. And do I critique voice line gameplay? Right. Okay.
JFC Fuller. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, JFC Fuller. One of my favorite games. I like survival games. Not necessarily with voiced games.
You must be sick of it.
Well, it's work, and it's. I mean, I love big open world games as well. Like when I had COVID back in it was like, I think so 2022, it was like March, I think, and I got COVID, and I played Assassin's Creed Valhalla because I've had it for ages, and I hadn't, and I just got, and so big immersive games.
Yeah, let's do it. When I'm having a bit of a fever dream, let's.
Yeah, exactly. That's the sort of thing, and I mean, I loved Frostpunk. I play a lot of Don't Starve is my relaxation game. I know, I'm really.
I didn't find it very relaxing.
I know, but it's weird, isn't it?
Each to their own.
Each their own. I've got friends who like side scroller 8-bits are their relaxation game, and I'm very, very poor at platformers, so I don't find platformers relaxing at all, because I'm very, very bad at them. But I'm good at slashy bashy games, so I like slashy game. So and one of the things I really like about Don't Starve is that they have dialogue and none of it is voiced. It's all little tweety music game stuff. But I like survival. I play a lot of indie games. I've most recently played Dredge. I played Cult of the Lamb. Loved Cult of the Lamb. But I like story-rich games as well. And I'm not a snob about what platform I play on either. I'll play on anything. I've been playing a little bit of DLC of This War of Mine, which is incredibly depressing and a really brilliant game.
I do not know it.
It's based on the Yugoslav War. And it's very good, but it's a game beyond entertainment. I think you could call it. And do I critique voice line in games I play? No. I used to. I absolutely used to, and I was snobby about it. And then I gave myself a mental slap a couple of years ago, because I know what directing is like. And I have definitely directed sessions where it is like getting blood out of a stone for whatever reason, whether it's just a miscast or the actor's just not really ready to do that level of game, or the writing's not up to par. And it is really hard, and it is no one's fault, you know? So I don't critique voice line. Sometimes I will definitely play games and think they've cast their mates. Like, I will definitely play games and think,
but we've got past that.
Yeah, no, but there are definitely games out there where I'm like, this isn't. Where I will say that the acting's not very truthful. It's not very believable. But I don't pick apart people's performances.
No,
because there's no.
At the end of the day, someone said that's what we want. That's going into the game. So that's a great decision.
Somebody critiqued, like, there's a line, I think it was an Irish character, or she was apparently Irish, I want to say it was in Starfield. I think it was relatively recently, and people were tearing apart this poor actress because of her accent. And yeah, she quite clearly wasn't native Irish,
but they hired her.
But they hired somebody at the end. And who knows what happened for this actor? This could have been the last character she did in a session where they were like, can you do an Irish accent? She does her version of it. They go, great, good enough, close enough. And then she bangs out the lines. Who the hell knows? You don't know. The amount of times I have directed where I am under the clock. I need to get my word count. I need the line count. The devs need the lines now. We need to turn this around. And you go with, that's the best, you know, the best you can. You have to pick your battles sometimes. And so I would love to have the budget and the time to do a perfect job on every line. But I do not, because the kind of timescales, the speeds I have to work to. Like, sometimes some of the games I've worked on, I'm expected to direct 1,500 words an hour. And that's a lot. That's a lot. That's like 150 lines an hour. That's a ton.
That's a lot.
And yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, you can't get perfection on that sort of things. You can get 1 take, 2 takes if you're lucky, moving on. You know, you hit what you can and you move on. So no, I used to be a snob about it, gave myself a mental slap and went, nope.
Yeah. You can't judge on this either. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks for mentioning some numbers, because it's what's nice about having the chat is people going, hey, what? How many? And it's like, oh, we just go in and we do it in 1 or 2 takes. It's a bit like being. It's a bit like being a concert musician. I was talking to my partner about this earlier. It's a bit like being a classically trained orchestral session musician, right? You'll have 1 rehearsal if you're lucky. Otherwise, you're sight reading, and that's what goes in the score. That's what goes in the soundtrack. You have done all of your work outside of the recording room. That's years and years of experience and training and practice and all that. And obviously, as actors, we do not work as hard as musicians do. We don't put in as many hours. But that work has been done outside. We do not do it in the room. You go and you just record that. And it should be done in 1 or 2 takes, unless you've really got some difficulty, you know, with the words or something, pronunciations and things.
I think, I mean, when you're setting a character, it can take a bit longer. So we do allow for that. Actually,
but once you get going, right?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. This actually feeds in something to, somebody had a question about, like, making a. Do you have anything in particular to make talent comfortable in the booth to let them know it's a safe space? Oh, it was Miller JAB again. I think it's that's really interesting, because the amount of time I have to make an actor feel safe is about 10 minutes. In order
you got to set up that rapport.
Yep, in order to hit my word counts, and I'm not being funny about that. Every session I do, I have a certain amount of lines and words I have to get done, because that's how you budget for games. So I have probably about 10 minutes to make an actor feel safe. Essentially, what I do is ask them about them. How have you found the character? Do you have any questions? How was your journey on the way here? Is there anything you want me to know for the next hour or 2 hours or 4 hours or 4 years that we'll be, recording together? Is there anything that you want to tell me now? Because the much I know about my actors, the better. I make them aware that I know I explain what we're doing. I talk to them about the character. I talk to them about the game. Somebody else asked a question about how much I know about the game. Oh, Systinator. There's always a lot of secrecy around games in general. As a director, how much of the plot do you generally know? Do you get context for your scene? How long is a piece of string? Sometimes I know the entire plot of the game. There's a game I'm directing on at the moment. I have no idea.
Is that
I know scenes. I don't know what
would that be correlated with budget? The
Yes.
bigger the game, the less you know.
Yeah, and also and the time of the game. Like I got very, very good in Baldur's Gate 3 for going for being able to go, okay, at this point in the game, this is what your character's doing. This is what our scenario is. This is who you've talked to. This is who your group is. This is what's happening in the story. The player might have done this, but they can also potentially have done this. This is where they meet you. This is your role in the game. This is your focus for the game. And I got very good about doing that for Baldur's Gate 3 because I worked on it for a long time, and because that is the way my brain works. I'm very good at making connections.
You're very useful.
Yeah,
you're an encyclopedia.
And it makes me in that way a very useful director, an effective director, an efficient director, because I can find patterns quite easily, and so I plug that into things. But that is in those 10 minutes, I let the actor know that I'm on their side. This is a safe space, that whatever they do here is fine, and don't worry about making mistakes. We have time. I know I'm under the clock, but my actor shouldn't feel like that as much as I can possibly make it. And I really hate it when I have to rush for various reasons, but mainly my actor should feel that they have the time that they need. And yeah, that's just about asking about you. That's how we do it's human connection, isn't it? I'm not a dictator. They're not a precious diva. We're both.
If you don't set that up, it's very diminishing returns. If you don't set up that rapport at the beginning, then where do you go? It's just a grind. It actually takes longer as well, because you haven't had that connection yet. No, absolutely. And thank you very much for making me feel so comfortable together.
No, you're welcome.
It was so much fun. It was play, and then we do so many lines. We do more lines. We'd just be getting through them, we'd be flying through them. So
that's it. I'm trying to set up a state of flow, which other directors talk about as well. But once people are living the character, and once you're responding as the character, which you did brilliantly, Sam. Once you were Karlach, you responded as Karlach, and then you get things with then you can see the actor knows how to respond, because they are being the character. And when you get in that state, then it's just a joy. It's a joy to explore together, and to have fun together, and to find all the nuances together. And I think that kind of feeds into Nom the Burritos. I love that as a Twitch name. Nom the Burritos. I also nom the burritos. What's a quality among actors you've worked with that is very important for you when looking for talent? I would say the ability, the flexibility is really important if you're doing, particularly if you're working in games. And I don't just mean accents. Somebody else asked about accents, so I'm going to vaguely cover this off in the same answer. Oh, JC Fuller, another question. How important is it for an actor to have a range of voices or accents? Right. What I'm interested in is flexibility. And that can be, I don't want a range of voices, because you're not performing voices, you're doing characters. Voices to me are silly. They're just voices. That's mimicking things. That's just, this is my high squeaky voice. This is my witch voice. This is my cowboy voice. That's not a fully developed character. That's a voice. I'm not interested in voices. I'm interested in characters. But flexibility for me is somebody who can perform characters, has a range of characters they might go to, which may be different accents and maybe different ages, but they can be them in all different situations. So they can be angry with them, they can be devastated, they can be a dad, they can be a daughter, they can be, they can be overjoyed for someone, they can be sarcastic with someone, they can play those characters in a 360-degree way. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of versatility. Yes, different accents and different ages and different energies are very, very useful. But I'm looking for actors who are able to put themselves into a character.
Act.
To act.
I get asked all the time, and I'm sure you did, especially when you were acting more. How do I do it? As if, follow XYZ, do all the accents, especially that impressions of living voice actors. That'll get you lots of work.
It's just,
but it isn't funny voices.
No,
Sorry.
It's not silly. Yeah, it's not silly voices.
You gotta learn how to act.
I know people who can do a range of different accents. What I'm interested in is whether you can act. And I guess the most important thing is do I believe you when you're voicing these characters? Can you lift the words off the page and become that character? Can you react as that character? Can I hear that? Or are you just saying the words in a nice way? because
it's interesting, isn't it? Because we talked about authenticity at the beginning, and nowadays, like, you don't want an actor who can do lots of accents that don't belong to their heritage or cultural background. You want the real deal.
Yeah.
So now we're getting the best actors in with those natural accents. You're not getting someone to do. I've seen it. You know. Oh my god. When the first, the last game actor strike in the US, when I was starting to come in, and suddenly all these roles were coming through for American accents, and they would ask for them, and then right at the end you'd go, right, and can you do an Indian one, please? And you go, what? No, get a different actor for that. Why are you asking me? You know, it's this laundry list because it's how much can I squeeze out of you in that session. And I think now that we're having these a reckoning, I was going to say conversations, but we've had a reckoning about authentic casting and representation and diversity and all the rest, and giving everyone their time. Yeah, I think that's out of date advice to do lots of different accents.
I think it's up. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it is come in useful if you're doing, if a lot of the games, if you're an actor, and then a lot of the roles you will start off doing in games will be smaller. They will be NPCs, they'll be supporting characters. To having like a handful of accents you can do really well, a handful of ages, and just kind of a character toolbox is quite useful. I know, you know, this is my punchy early 20s tomboy, whatever. This is my elegant noble, you know, this is whatever. Those kind of, you know, that kind of thing can be.
But it's an attitude as well. That's right. It's not just
exactly. Exactly.
You've got a bit of that idea of that character, a feel, the outside edges that could be directed, but you've got an attitude towards it.
Yeah,
rather than doing
exactly.
That.
But really, it's about people who can just really become the characters. I mean, if I'm looking for a Geordie accent, and I have done that before, I'm just going to go to
find a real one. For God's sake.
Yeah, find a real one. I have the advantage of living in the UK, but also I have a lot of connections in the US. I cast people in the US all the time. You know, So I think I probably covered that question. I can get ranty.
That's a good one. We have a lot of people who want to get into games as actors as well. So it's our job to shatter those dreams.
I am Lou89. We're working on Baldur's Gate 3 with the many different dialogue trees. How did you keep track of them all? Were there times where you would change dialogue before it didn't work fit? That's probably a question.
She's a genius. That's why how you kept track of dialogue trees. So
I can't. Yes, I can't answer that, unfortunately, without probably breaking the NDA, because there is a very I can tell you,
it's proprietary, isn't it?
Proprietary. every large game, every large studio often has their own proprietary dialogue system, and Larian is no different. So we could keep track of them because of the genius dialogue system that they created. Changing dialogue is probably not a question I can answer, because I think that's probably just getting into too much what I can talk about the game. I'm sorry about that. I also can't answer the thing about Crunch and Larian. Anything specifically about Larian, unfortunately, that's outside of what I can talk about. I can talk about the casting one. When casting someone, this is hang on. If that's you, and again, we've answered one of yours. I know. Yeah. Coos 13.
Yeah.
How do you match voices to characters when so many times they change or evolve over production? Hang on, match voices to characters. Do you mean because the characters change over or evolve over production? Is that what you're asking?
If you're there, Coos, drop us some clarification in the chat.
Okay, so characters do change. I'm going to take it like it is characters. Characters do change and evolve over production. Very good answer. In fact, we can answer Sam. We can answer this as Sam as an example. What happened? Well, the character changed enough, and they recast the actor.
Yeah, and to be fair, like, she did a small bit in the EA, and then she was done. Like, she didn't get fired. There wasn't lots of material that got, you know, because people think that you're replacing, but I think they just wanted to whet your appetite with what Karlach could be. I mean, when I auditioned 2020, she was a fighter. She was a wiry thing. We didn't have the infernal engine going on, but we did have this relationship to Zyra, 10 years in the Hells and that.
Yeah.
And then she was just another hard ass in the team. She didn't really have a sense of humour, did she?
No, it was just quite different, and the character was rewritten, and so we recast. And I think, I mean,
the second time I auditioned, I did a much stronger audition because she was so much stronger, and
and
obviously what she was. The description by Sarah Bayless was so spot on, and it was contemporary. I got it immediately. Because
Yeah,
I think
and
I
it was
fluffed
quite
up the other
different.
one. I think I was a bit bland. I don't think I'd got a real idea of what she was like.
It was just really, I mean, it was just really different. And sometimes that happens. But often, a lot of the time, you have to trust your casting choices. I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 is by no means the only game I've worked on where we've recast people because the character has changed so much that the original actor just isn't right for them anymore. Yeah, so, and sometimes you just have to, you have to trust that.
But you know that
right.
Carlette got changed from me as well when I started.
Yeah.
I did a few sessions and they changed her, and I kept my job.
Yeah,
I kept my job.
I mean, a lot of the times, like
she's a bit more of a braggart, and I was like,
yeah, she was. Yeah, and I think
she's gonna, when you roll that one, she's gonna have some lines to cover that humiliation.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it gave her a bit more of a sense of humor, and she's more of a laugh.
Yeah, and I think you get I mean, the thing is, when you start, we had no idea how big Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be. Well, I didn't know how big it was going to be when we started working on it. We knew it was going to be fairly sizable, but I don't think anybody knew. Probably, you know, maybe Sven.
I don't think he knew. I remember when it launched on Steam, and he said, "Uh-oh, I've told the infrastructure engineers working on the servers on the West Coast. I've told them to expect 100,000 concurrent players. It was 800,000-ish."
Yeah.
On launch. So you can actually multiply by 8. You can see 8 times bigger than we thought on launch.
Than we thought, yeah. So
and it's
I
even
think
bigger than that now. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think you know, you don't know. Like Dave Jones's Halson developed, so many of the characters developed. You know, when I think about where we started with Astarion, and when I first started working with Neil Newburn, and where we ended up with Astarion, it's very, very different. We had no idea where that was going to go. And you just have to, that was a process of trusting the writers, trusting your actors, and steering the ship, you know? I was really, we spent a lot of time, especially with the lead characters, at least in my sessions, really working on the different personalities and their journeys and where they went to. And I spent a lot of time in the sessions, like I'd come after, say, not working with Devora on with Lae'zel, and the next time I saw her, I'd be like, right, so what has happened with Lae'zel? You know, where's she been? What's she been doing? Where's she gone? Where is she? You know, where is she on her journey? So that became quite important. I think it's having just, again, it just comes down to communication, talking to people and talking to the writers. We had all the days that I was directing, I had contact with the writers, regular contact, you know, what's happened to them now? Hey, look, I've seen this line and I'm not sure what's going on with this character. Can you tell me where they are on their journey at this point? And just, you know, making sure that I had a really solid understanding of what their character's journey was, so that I could then keep the actors, you know, steer the ship, like I said. Yeah, I think it's, unfortunately, I think it's quite late now in the UK.
It is getting late. I'm just trying to see if there's I can do the acting ones another time. I mean, if you need to go, I'll try and finish some off. I mean,
okay. I can tell you what, Constance. I've noticed for fantasy, it seems the only way to be cast.
I'm glad you picked that one up.
Having a UK accent, is that actually the case? As in, could someone who had another accent have any chance, regardless of their acting skill? If that makes sense, right? I mean, the thing is, you have a couple of things to thank for the UK accents thing, and one of them is Lord of the Rings,
and Game of Thrones.
And Game of Thrones, but Lord of the Rings came out, and The Witcher.
Every fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, it's been a real thing. Not every fantasy game has a UK accent. It's just that it feels that way. But there's plenty of fantasy games I've worked on where it's been American, where it's been international. There's a game I'm working on which has got I went through a run of games last year where everything I was looking for was Scandinavian for some reason,
and the accent will always be a client request.
Yeah, it'll always be a client request. So I never discount. Yes, Baldur's Gate 3 is predominantly, for the vast majority, there were British accents. One of the big reasons for that is that we recorded in the UK. You know, if they were American, then there was a really good, you know, Cyberpunk is mainly recorded in the US, you know, well, that was split, but it's kind of, you know, there's a lot of this sort of, yeah, of course you can, but fantasy is such a broad, you know, there's such a broad genre. You can definitely get a role. It's just, yeah, if they are looking for British accents and you're not confident about your, and British obviously is a very big but you're not particularly confident about it, well, yeah, then you will not be right for that role. But somebody else who is, you know, there are definitely actors I've worked with who, not every actor can play every game. I wouldn't have cast, you know, Troy Baker as Halson, for example.
Sorry,
you know,
Troy.
sorry,
Sorry,
Troy.
mate.
Sods Troy. I bet he's really upset about that as well.
Would you take one more question before you go?
Yes, I will take one more
mod,
question.
Cypher, who is
Yeah.
a senior writer on the Wonder Woman game, has a question for you.
No.
Do you think it's important for writers to be in the room, actually or virtually, when lines are being recorded?
I love having writers in the room because I think it's really important to have an idea. They can give kind of the backstory and the context of what's happened, what happens in the game, especially if they're the one responsible for the character. It can be really, really useful to have them in the room, at least in the early stages of recording. If it's a character we're going to, you know, to make sure that we're all on the same page. It's really disheartening if I've established a character, we've done, you know, initial recording sessions, and then the writer comes back and goes, "This isn't what I want," and they weren't there.
Yeah.
If they're not there, you know, the thing is, as a director, as a voice and performance director, I'm a freelancer. I'm not, and some companies do have in-house voice and performance directors, but I am never going to know the game as much as you do, as well as you do. You know, I can read as much as I like, but I will not know the game as well as a dev who works or who has lived that game every single day for however long, how many months, however many years. So it's really important to me that you're happy. And so I love having writers in the game, writers in the room. I would say the big thing I would say to writers is that, you know, just understand that directors do have to run a recording session a certain way to get performances from actors, that the way that the actor hearing multiple voices is not often very useful or efficient. So in an ideal world, you will set up your recording space, and I try to do this. I try to have chats with clients beforehand, so we just lay down how is this going to work for everyone. With some sessions, I communicate with the writers and producers and sound designers and whoever else needs to be talked to in that session. Sometimes I communicate with them by Slack. Sometimes it's like a Zoom chat if it's online. Sometimes they're physically in the room with me, sometimes they're on Zoom, and we in the breaks, when the actor goes out and has a break, I have a chat and go, great, let's check in, see where we're going, finding some way of communicating so that everybody's happy with the way it goes, and we're getting what you're after for your game in a way that doesn't disrupt the flow and what the actor's trying to do. So I really like, and big shout out to all the writers that I've worked with on over 50 titles I've worked on, because you know, having them there was great. And I've done some and yeah, some of the writers I've worked with have been amazing, and I'm very used to I'm quite happy, you know, because it's not I'm just one small cog in a big game, you know, or a small game, one small cog in a small game, you know.
Very important cog.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's still a thing. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'm a big fan, by the way.
I love it.
Yeah,
Kirsty, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your willingness to share that with the world. Yes, you have all been blessed by modern genius chats, and from the response we've been having in the chat, they're loving it. So we want more of this sort of thing. We hope to see more of you being interviewed. There's a lot of cast people interviewing people at the moment, you know, like Fraser. Get on his show.
Whatever.
It'll work it out eventually. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So we there are actually some questions, you know, I can answer without speaking for Kirsty from an actor's perspective and not breaking NDA. Maybe about 3 questions. So I'll answer those, and then and then we'll call it for the night. But yes, thank you very much, Kirsty. We'll go to another break, and you're going to be stuck with me for a bit, chat. Sorry. I'll see you soon, Kirsty.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
thank you, Sam, for having me on this. It's and thank
How
you
could
everybody
I
for
not?
watching. I know, but it's still I wanted
But like
to say
the value
thank you.
that like people now know who you are. Like, how could I know you and not get you on this?
Oh, if everybody wants to know who's in my village, Sam is definitely in my village.
Mutual villaging. That's the
Mutual
whole
village.
point of a communal space. But anyway, yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you
Bye,
again,
everyone.
and I'll see you in a few minutes, guys.
Okay.
All right. Right. We did it. We did it. We did it. Thank you. You were lovely and well behaved and sensible, and Kirsty clearly had an amazing time. What are we doing now? I've got to thank people. I have to write this down. I'm not very natural at it yet. Thank you to the mods. You've done a fantastic job. You have to do. There's lots of stuff going on between managing the chat, getting the questions together, running the ads, everything. You've done a fantastic job, and as always, thank you very much. You're great. Tanya has a D&D game coming up. See, this is why I wrote it down. If you want to drop Cypher, if you would like to drop the link to your D&D game, please, if you haven't already. That's about an hour and a half. I don't know the difference in times, but please drop that in the chat. That'll be streamed quite soon. I don't know if there's anyone to raid. Is there anyone to raid? Let's have a look. So casual now. So casual. Who else is going tonight? Okay. Stephen Joyce. Sure, why not? But you have dropped that in there, haven't you? Cool. Excellent. In that case, we will head over to Stephen Joyce in a minute. Thank you again for the very generous donations. Wow. I'm gonna have to just put up the goal to 4,000 because I'm just making up a goal. Mind will take anything very gratefully, and I think they're quite surprised by how much you're giving, and thank you to supporting in the form of subs. But you don't have to do that. This is all free, just for us to enjoy and have these conversations. Join us at the same time next week. Our special guest will be announced the day before. Stay tuned, and yeah, we're going to go and raid now. So thank you again, and we are going to roll the credits. And I'm not going to stay still for that whole thing. But yes, thanks again, and yeah, this time next week. And join us for the raid. Join us for the D&D game that Cypher posted. And please start the raid, mods. It's too much for me to do at once. And yeah, see you soon. Bye-bye.